welcome to Extraordinary People in an Ordinary World. I'm your host, Beth, and I'm an ordinary person amazed by the extraordinary people surrounding us. This podcast is about people who live among us who are doing extraordinary things. You can expect to meet people from all walks of life doing things that may inspire you, make you want to change, or just simply sit back and delight in their stories. I have met the most extraordinary people in my ordinary world, and I am so grateful to have the opportunity to share their stories. Now listen in and enjoy. Your inspiration may be right here in this episode. It's May, and everyone knows what that means. It's time to celebrate mothers. They're extraordinary people. This year hits differently for me. It's my first Mother's Day without my mom. So for this month's episode, I wanted to shine a light on a mom who truly stands out. Honestly, I don't even have the words to describe her. Extraordinary doesn't even come close. We're speaking today with Jamie Becker, a remarkable mother of 5 children who has been married for 19 years. Her family includes biological, foster, adoptive, and special needs children, all of whom found their way into her heart and home. She's an inspiring example of love, sacrifice, and devotion. Thank you for being with us today. To start, can you tell us a little bit about becoming a mom, raising your 5 children, each of the unique backgrounds, but they all share that same Becker name? How does it feel to be blessed with such a diverse family? And what is it like to watch them all come together as one family? Did you always envision yourself as a foster mom or adoptive mom? And did anything change that you thought might have been different being a foster or adoptive mom? Maybe you could start off with just explaining your family, starting off with your children.
Sure. I have 5 children. 2 of them are biological. 3 of them are adopted. 3 to 4 of them have some form of special need. It's a lot, yeah. But I literally am living my dream. So in response to your question about, did I always want to be an adoptive mom? Yes. So from as long as I can remember, I, first of all, always wanted to be a mom. I mean, as early as I can remember, I was always daydreaming and playing that I was a mother, that I had multiple children. I was naming them constantly. That was half of the fun of Barbies, was just putting together families and naming all the children. So, I was obsessed with this idea of being a mom. And I really want to credit, since it is a Mother's Day podcast, I want to credit my mother. I have a very strong relationship with my mother. She means the world to me. She has supported me through all these changes in my family, all the difficulties I hit. When I'm struggling with one of my children, there's no question I'm going to call my mother. So she gave me that foundation of showing me the importance of motherhood, and it's really a sacred thing. It's this, I believe I have a very, strong relationship with God. And I feel that it's a gift from God, that each of these children are my blessing. I know not everybody, feels that way, but for me, it's not a question. Each of my 5 children came to me in a very specific journey and a big miracle. Each one of them are miracles. So for me, I always want to be a mom, but then when I was in my teen years, I used to watch a TLC show called Adoption Story. I don't know if you remember that before TLC got really weird. Yeah, there was baby story, wedding story, adoption story, and as soon as I would get off the bus for high school, I would run inside, grab a snack, and turn on this little marathon of stories on TLC. But Adoption Story was my favorite. And it would show usually a Korean adoption where the parents would meet their child at the airport for the first time in America, and they would be brought over from Korea, and then it would show them bonding. And I was just enthralled by it. And I said, I want to do that. Like, wow, so exciting. So then I met my husband on a blind date. That's a funny story too. But I met my husband on a blind date in Bible college in Chicago. We went to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago. He studied to be a pastor. I studied to be really a missionary. I got my degree in linguistics, but I met him on a blind date. And shortly after we were dating, we were very serious fast and knew that, each other were the spouse of our dreams. And I said to him, I remember exactly what street, Beth, I was on, that I said to him, are you okay with not only having biological children, but having an adopted child? In my mind, it was only one. So one adopted child, but man, did I hold him to it. He said, yes, that is totally fine with me. And I think that would be a fun adventure. And I said, oh boy. And it has been quite the adventure. So for our
Not
first,
many men would be,
no,
it.
He's a very special man. And if you saw him with each of our children, you would see like, he's just so good with them. So, and I knew that I would have never picked a spouse that I didn't feel would be a wonderful father. Like I knew he's going to be a wonderful father. So we had some infertility, which I didn't expect. And we had Caroline, my daughter Caroline, so with an A in the middle. So we call her Cara. And she's now 14. I can't believe it. 14. So we had her for a few years, just Cara. And then my infertility cleared up and we got the okay from my doctor, like you can. I had like some difficult medical things, and then he cleared me for a go for having another child. And I all of a sudden went, wait a second, this is our opportunity. Let's adopt from China. So China had a good adoption, policy at that time. Now, unfortunately, all adoptions from China are closed. It's very, very sad. The children are languishing in the orphanages. But I started working extra jobs so I could save up to adopt from China. It's a very expensive process, $36,000. And I saved up some of the beginning stuff. And then I saw a video of this adorable little deaf girl standing in an alleyway playing. And I just knew I've had this many times in my life, but this maternal feeling, that's my daughter. That's her. And her name was Shatong. I'm not pronouncing it well. It's more like Shatong. But that was her. China is beautiful. It's one of her middle names. So we flew to China. We were there for 17 days in China. And we took Cara, who was 3.5 at the time. And the story with Katie is the second she walked into that hotel lobby where we were going to meet her, I knew this is my beautiful daughter. It was very emotional. And then within 90 seconds of meeting her, I came to the huge realization, whoa, she has autism. She has a pretty severe case of autism. She's not just... Okay, so I recognized, wow, this is a big journey I have ahead of me. And honestly, Beth, I have told people I felt like I was standing at the base of Mount Everest. In that moment, I had that visualization. I'm standing at the base of Mount Everest, and I have this insane journey and challenge ahead of me. And I cried out to God. And that moment, I had a silent prayer as I was hugging her. I said, Lord, you cannot leave me now. Do not leave me now. I need you. This is going to be a rough journey. I already know it, but I'm not going to leave this child. I can't leave this child. So we had a chance, Beth. We had 24 hours to decide once we got her whether we were going to adopt her the next day. And it was not a question. It honestly wasn't even a question in my mind or my husband's. I told him what was going on because I had worked with children with autism before. Mm-hmm. And I said, Douglas, this is going to be an uphill battle, honey. And he said, it's not even a question in my mind. We were on the same page. It's as if I had pushed her out like Kara. She was laying on my chest in that delivery room, and I discovered she had some sort of special need. It was not like,
saw her,
yeah,
huh?
yeah, I fell in love, and she was my daughter. There was no question. And so we adopted her the next day. The first several months were very lonely. I think I went into a depression. It was almost like postpartum depression, really. And she was a very bad sleeper. She had very, very strong ADHD on top of the autism. She just never stopped moving, and she would do such dangerous things. She had no discretion about what was risky for her life. She would try to run right into the road. It was very stressful. And
remind me again, how old was she?
She was 4. She was 4, okay. But she was starved in China pretty badly. She was the size of a 1-year-old. As far as we understand, she did not get enough to eat, and she was very, very small. She almost has institutional dwarfism, is what it's called. She's still she's 15 now, and she is like 65 pounds. It's very sad. We can't get her to gain any weight. So she's the struggle with Katie is she I didn't even mention it. I don't think we named her Katie Grace Shatong Becker. And the struggle with Katie was that she had no language. Being deaf, they hadn't taught her any language, so she really didn't barely even point. She was almost, it's sad to say, but she was almost animalistic at first. So she had no concept of a family, no concept of love, only punishment and the need for food. It was very clear that those were the two themes of her life, was punishment and food. And she would cower in fear, and she had scars from the top of her head to the bottom of her feet. So I tried my best. You have to know that I went to a deaf school. I had classes for a year before I got her. I was pretty proficient in sign language, and then I received a deaf child who would not sign at all, Beth. So for the first, I'm going to say it was 5 months, I would hand over hand, take her hand for every single sentence and sign like, Mommy, I want cereal, please. And I would do that hand over hand, do it in American Sign Language with her. And she never repeated any of the signs. It was so devastating. I spiraled at that time and thought, I didn't regret adopting her, but I thought, how am I ever going to help this child get a language of her own? So in October, we adopted her in May, and in October, one day, for I call it Miracle Week, something clicked in her brain, Beth. And she came to me, and she wanted an orange, and she signed, I want an orange, please, Mommy. And I almost fainted. Wow. I was just blown away. Aww. And I started screaming for Doug. I said, oh my gosh, this is it. And she was in a deaf school at the time that really didn't fit well, because that wasn't her greatest need. Her greatest need was her autism. So we got her into the right program. Man, did I learn advocacy in that time to advocate for my children. I bet. Yeah. And So at that time, we had Kara and Katie for a couple years, just the two of them. And then we got, my husband is a pastor, and he became a pastor at a church with a very large parish and large yard. And I said, wow, we need to fill this house. So
Yeah.
I said to him, why don't we get a dog? And I wasn't thinking more kids at that moment. So we started fostering a dog, which I had never said. I had always said, here's the irony. I had always said, I will not foster children because I could never say goodbye. I had seen friends of mine have to say goodbye. And I said, it's not for me. I can't do it. I only adopt. But maybe I could foster a dog. So there's so much Beth, there's so much irony in it. So we fostered a dog. I went in November 2016 to go 16 to go adopt the dog. I was driving up Route 15 in New Jersey to adopt the dog, to sign the papers. And on the drive, I drove through Wharton, if you know that area. And on the drive, I don't have moments like this. I promise you, this is very rare for me. I had this moment of, I don't know what to call it. It was this very spiritual connection moment. And I had this overwhelming feeling that God was saying to me, wow, Jamie, so you'll foster and adopt a dog, but you won't foster a child. And I was so convicted in that moment. And then I had this overwhelming feeling, and now I know it was true, it was from God, that there is a girl, not a baby, a girl who is in trouble. She's in a bad situation right now in this area, and she needs you to become a foster mom and get her and help her have a safe home.
This is the feeling that you had.
Yes. It was all this overwhelming pressing on my heart. And I had never had a moment like that. I was overwhelmed. I adopted the dog. I got home. I said, how am I going to say this to my husband? I mean, how do you even bring that up? How do you bring that up? So I said to him, Doug, I sat him down. I said, honey, and I told him the feeling I had. And I thought he was going to say no. I thought he was going to say, you're crazy. What are you talking about? How did you hear from God? And all he said to me was, well, our back seat of our car is 1 inch too small to fit another car seat. And I said, what? I said, is that really your only, thing that's stopping you? And he said, yes. So yeah, we became foster parents immediately. We immediately did the application. We took a leap of faith because I said, if God brought us this far, look what he's done with Katie. Let's take a leap of faith. Sometimes in your life, you just have to take a leap of faith. So we did. We did the application. We told almost no one. And then the irony is, a month later in December, it was 2015. In December, we were doing the Christmas Eve service at the church, and we were standing on the stage, and we went to a very small church at the time. It was like 60 people. And all of a sudden they said, oh, Jamie and Doug, come on stage. We have something for you. And they gave us $10,000 directly. They said, we want you to be able to buy a minivan. They had no idea we were growing our family. They had no idea we needed it. And it was immediate. It was just this immediate. There's just times in life where you get just confirmations of, wow, I'm on the right path. It's okay.
Yeah. My aunt would call that God acting anonymously.
I love it. Yeah, God is very active. I truly believe he has his hand in every part of our life. And so we got the minivan. We were ready to fill it. And we did get a little boy first, a little sweet boy that we had for a year. But in that time, I was fostering the boy, and I'll say his name, Brantley. And we were fostering Brantley, and we got a call from the DCPMP, the division, I call them, to babysit. They just wanted me to babysit this deaf girl. she was living with her step grandma. Her grandma had to take classes to become a foster parent like we had. So I said, sure. I really thought we were just going to babysit her. And Beth, I had a big, huge moment like I had had before where she walked into my foyer. I'm just supposed to babysit her. And the moment I met her and she walked into my foyer, I got this huge maternal wave that hit my heart that was just like when I saw the video of Katie in that alley. This is my daughter. This is the child. But I had no idea she was in trouble. I had no idea that they would even let me foster her. She was already with a grandma. Why would she need to be with me? And I watched her that whole day, just fell in love with her. She was so dynamic. She was 8 years old, but so tiny, very petite, and got along so beautifully with my Kara, who was 5 at the time. And it was so fun to watch them play together and interact, because with Katie, Kara can't really interact very dynamically because Katie's kind of still in her own little world. So it was so cool to watch. And I thought, well, why would this be my daughter? God, like, it doesn't make any sense. And then Jackie's step grandma came and she told me the story, Jackie's story, which I can't share, but it was Jackie had been through really hell and back. And so the step grandma had custody of her. And I only later, a few weeks, found out that in that home, she was still at risk. And she was really in trouble in a difficult circumstance and needed to get out. And so the division called me and they said, they did not say, would you foster? They knew it was an adoption case. And they said, would you adopt Jackie? And I literally hit my knees. I fell down on my knees on the phone. And I said, I just didn't even know how to say it. I said, I knew this call was coming. I knew. And I said, yes, we've already said yes, we would adopt her. So they gave us Jackie. Jackie is a just wonderful child, so smart. So she's in all honors classes now.
How old is she now?
She's now turning 17.
Okay.
Yeah, she's turning 17. I can't believe she's going to drive.
Wow.
So she's profoundly deaf. So we're fluent in sign language. I am with her. And my husband does a different form of sign language so he can communicate with her. But he's not as proficient as me for sure, but she's very patient. She has such a close relationship with him. It's beautiful to watch. So that's my Jackie. Yeah. And I could tell you about Lacey. I don't know. Do you want me to move on to Lacey?
I want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Calm Creations. If you like relaxing by the warm glow of a candle with the scent that brings back memories, I've got the perfect candle company for you. Calm Creations, based in New Jersey, makes high-quality, beautifully scented candles, and 10% of their profits go to benefit nonprofit organizations. Check out their amazing selection at calmcreations.com. And thank you for being a sponsor of Extraordinary People in an Ordinary World. Sure. Yeah. Why don't you move on to Lacey?
Yeah. So Lacey's
number
4.
4.
Number 4. Jackie's number 3. Lacey's number 4. So I'd have to tell you, so Brantley, and that whole year that we had Jackie, that first year we had Brantley, and we loved him.
With you also.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. So he was like, we thought those were our 4 children, Kara, Katie, Jackie, and Brantley. We thought we'd be able to adopt him. And the situation changed. He had a distant relative that wanted to adopt him. And even though we loved him dearly, we were so close with him, it was very, very hard, Beth. In February 2017, he had to leave. He had to move on to the distant relative who was out of state.
How that must have felt.
It was absolutely, it was such a loss. I definitely went into depression at that point too. And
I could cry just to hear your story about that.
I can tell you, Beth, he didn't, it was so hard at that age because there was no way to communicate it to him, what was about to happen. He was about to turn 2. So I had him from about the time he was 1 to about the time he was 2. And I was his mommy in every stretch of the word. I was all he knew as mommy. And I went, the division workers came to take him, and we had the girls leave. We didn't want the girls to be there. They already said goodbye to him, but we didn't want them there for that very, traumatic moment.
Very traumatic.
And we said goodbye to him, and they put him in the car seat. And as they were strapping him in, he started signing, because he knew sign language too, so he could communicate with his sisters. He started signing, "Mommy, mommy, what's happening? What's happening?"
Aww.
And that was the last moment I ever saw him.
Until today.
Yeah. I haven't seen him. I have not seen him. And he left. And I tell people when I'm describing foster mom grief that the grief goes so deep. And I didn't feel betrayed by God, because I felt that God had let me know, as we were in this process, that when you love a foster child, you love them with everything. You take away the part of you that tries to hold your heart back, because it's not fair to them. It's really not fair to them. You have to love them with your whole heart, as if you will never say goodbye, knowing that there is that possibility that you will.
That takes an extra
it's hard.
Person to do.
It's so hard. I used to prepare foster parents who were in training for that. And I told them, I said, when I said goodbye to him and my husband and I went inside, my husband, 2 things happened that I'd never seen anyone do in grief. My husband cried so hard that he passed out. He literally passed out. I'd never seen someone do that ever in grief. And I had been, as a pastor's wife, I had been with many, many people in the throes of their grief. And then I cried until I actually vomited. It was so, people ask, well, did you love him? Did I love him? He was a son, and he still is a son in my heart that I can never stop loving. We lost touch with him. And then, interestingly enough, years later, this year, one of my students has his last name, and we live in a totally different town now. And I said to her, "Oh, do you happen to know Brantley?" And she said, "That's my nephew." And I was floored. She asked her mother permission, and she brought in a picture for me to keep of him. That's a current picture. He's about to turn 10. And
that's amazing.
It was such a gift from God. Such a gift from God to see a picture of this boy that I loved with all my heart. So that's kind of the foster mom piece. Now, you have to know how depressed I was when he left. It was everything I could do to just get out of bed in the morning and know that nursery at the end of the hall was empty forever. And that was his nursery. And I would Doug and I would drive in our special minivan, and we would look in the rearview mirror and we would say to ourselves, how is there only 3 children in this car now and not 4? We felt so discouraged. And we said, we're done fostering. We're going to wait till we can adopt Jackie, and we are closing our home to more children. And we made that decision. And we said, maybe we'll try for another child ourselves. To fill that hole that we have. And so then, I can hear my son coming to the door. Noah, go to daddy. We may need to pause for a second. If we can pause for 1 second. So then, we were going about our lives, trying to cope with the grief. And just a month after Brantley left, I got this unexpected phone call that changed my life. A woman on the phone said, is this Jamie Becker? I said, yes. She goes, I hear that you will take children that other people won't take. And so I truly believe, Beth, that they had a deaf child for me. I mean, that just makes sense. I was one of the only foster moms in the state that knew sign language that well. And so they said, we have a newborn. And I immediately said, oh, did she fail her newborn hearing screening? And they said, no. And I said, oh. And so I was waiting for what part is she not, desirable to other people? And so they said, we've been trying. She's 11 days old. She was born in Newark. We have been trying for 11 days to find a home for her, and we haven't been able to, but we've tried many counties, and we've heard that you will take children that other people won't. And so I said, okay, well, what is her need? And they said, she's Black. Beth, I was floored. I said, she's Black. Well, why are people? And she goes, we have a 2-year waiting list in Trenton, the capital of New Jersey, for a safe haven baby that's white. Foster parents that only want a safe haven baby that's white. 2-year waiting list. But we couldn't find a home because she's Black, and she's basically a safe haven baby. Safe haven means they were left.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So safe haven means a baby was left, no strings attached, at a fire station, a hospital, a police station. A baby can be left in the US, a baby can be left at any of those places, brought in, no questions asked. The parent can leave, and they are safe, and they will be taken care of, and there will be no legal ramifications for that parent. It's very important that we have that. It saves lives. Yes. Yeah. It saves lives. And they just started doing it in China in the past decade too. Because Katie, real quick, I'll say Katie was left on a street corner in China because there was no safe haven laws in China at that time. There was no opportunity to relinquish her anywhere without a legal ramification for her parents. And so she was left there on the street corner. Very sad. So Lacey, this was about Lacey, but her birth name is Angel. Her mother named her Angel. And I said, what's her story? What's going on? And they said her mother came into the hospital with a fake ID, did not want her identification known. She had a C-section, and the day after her C-section, she was walking out without the baby, and the nurses saw her, stopped her, and said, what are you doing? You're leaving your baby, or what's wrong? And she said, I'm so sorry. And she was crying. She said, I'm so sorry. I cannot raise this child. I have 4 other children who are not in my care right now. I need to work on getting them back. And she said, I want this Angel to be adopted by someone loving. And they said, well, sign the papers. And she was too scared, and she left. Now, the only way that we ever determined who she was is they did give her a phone number that she could call to check on the baby, and she did. So that'll come into play in a minute. But
Jamie, I just want to say something real quick. Sure. I know that some people may think, how could you leave your baby?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But in one respect, I just feel like how much you must love that baby, that you want them to be raised correctly. So
yes.
I don't feel any judgment there on that at all.
No. And what I say to people who try to judge Lacey's mother, I protect Lacey's mother at all costs, because I say, well, what's better, to leave your baby at a street corner, like what happened to Katie, to have your child, to keep your baby and then have your child in a very unsafe home, like what happened to Jackie. I said, really, out of the 3, Lacey's mother was the most sacrificial, loving, thoughtful mother to do that for her child in the way that she did. And I still have great amount of love for Jacqueline's mother and for Katie's mother, and I have grace for them, and I have I can understand, knowing both of their kind of situations, what they felt. They had no choice. They felt very weak in the moment. But for Lacey's mom, she did the safest thing, really. Correct. So Lacey was left. We hear about Angel. Her name at the time was Angel. And the woman on the phone said, "Do you want her?" And I said, "Yes." "Do not give that baby away." I said, "Please don't call anyone else." She said, "Well, no one else has wanted her." And I said, "Well, don't call anyone else. Give me 10 minutes, please." So I ran over to my husband's office. It was next door at the church at the time.
Jamie, let me just say 10 minutes to make a life-changing decision.
That I knew. It was not a question in my mind. I knew she was for us. So I ran over to Doug and I got down. I literally, again, I said, sit down. He sat in his chair and I got down on my knees and I crawled up to him and I go, Doug, I had little praying hands. And I said, "Honey." And he said, "What?" I said, there's a baby, babe. He's like, "I could tell from what you were doing." And I said, there's a baby, honey. And I said, "Her name is Angel." And I said, "She needs an adoptive home. It's an adoptive placement," meaning it's fostering, but they can tell it's leading toward adoption. And I said, and I barely had to get anything out of my mouth. And he said, "Go get her." He did not hesitate for a moment, Beth. He literally said, "Go get her. She's our daughter." And man, it was so beautiful. And, I had 1 hour to prepare for her. Basically, the kids were going straight to dance class. I dropped the kids off at dance class. I raced over to TJ Maxx. I was looking everywhere for anything for a bit. I had nothing. I had my two good friends come over and help me vacuum real quick. And they called me. And I will say, there's just I call them God winks. A little wink from God, like confirmation that you're on the right path. The moment, you never forget the moment you meet your first child. And for me, it was at 8:19 p.m. that I met Kara. She came out after a short amount of pushing, my first daughter, and they laid her on my chest, and it was 8:19 p.m. And they started singing "Sweet Caroline," oh, because that was her name. And you just never forget that magical, miraculous moment. It sticks in your mind forever. And the moment they called me and said, "We're here," it was 8:19 p.m. and with Lacey. And
the same time.
Yeah, exact same time.
Wow.
Exact same time. And to the minute. And I just, it stuck in my head, here's another moment. She's my daughter. And the moment I saw her, I have a video of it. I can somehow share if you want to, but
sure. Put it in the show notes if you have it.
We can. I have it. And it was just miraculous, like this beautiful, perfect 7-pound, 8-ounce baby named Angel. And I have no words. You can see in the video how deeply emotional it was for me that I had lost my little guy. And here I was holding this baby, this gift from heaven that somehow had been set aside for us. And I felt so overwhelmed with joy. And so 2 years later, right before she turned 2, we were able to adopt her. It takes longer because they have to relinquish the parents' rights in court. And we adopted her, and it was this beautiful adoption moment. We had all these people in court with us, supporting us. And we named her Lacey Joy Angel Becker. We wanted to keep her middle name. Which is a whole nother story. I think it's one of your later questions about the mothers, but and then we had Lacey for 4 years, and I found out on Easter morning that I was pregnant.
Again,
I couldn't believe it. Oh my gosh, Beth, I was floored
When you adopted, though, when you
Yes.
went through
Oh,
the
yeah,
court
yeah, yeah.
process, you have to tell the story
Yeah, I
about what
will.
your
I will.
husband
I
said.
will. Yeah, what my husband said. So the day we adopted Lacey, which was our third adoption, we had Kara, we had Jackie. I'm sorry, out of order there. We had Kara, we had Katie, we had Jackie. We adopted Lacey on March 1st, 2019. Doug looked at me at the party and he said, at the adoption party with everyone there, and he said, just so you know, I'm getting an adoption vasectomy. And he said, I am not, um, I am not adopting any more kids. We are done. Our house is full. And I 100% agreed with him. I said, our house is complete. We have 4 beautiful girls. I'm one of 5 girls. It was my dream to have girls. And here I have 4 of them. I was done. And we didn't feel like we were lacking anything. And then on Easter morning, 2021, I took a pregnancy test. I was actually in Texas visiting my mom with all the kids. And my mom looked at me and she goes, I think you're pregnant. She just was noticing things about me and said, I think you're pregnant. And I said, Mom, that's ridiculous. I'm like, why would I be pregnant? We're not even fertile anymore. We assumed we weren't fertile anymore. And I was turning 39. I was 39. Turning 40 soon. And I said, there's just no way. And she said, just get a pregnancy test. Do me a favor and get a pregnancy test. So we did. I took it and I took it at 2 a.m. Easter morning because you have to take it like as soon as you need to use the restroom and in the middle of the night if it needs to be. And I ran and got Doug. I was shaking. I ran and got Doug and woke him up. I said, come here, come in the bathroom. And he's like, come in the bathroom? And I said, yes. He didn't remember he had bought the pregnancy test. So I showed it to him and I was trembling. And he said, the first thing he said to me, which just shows what a wonderful, loving man he is I said, babe, look at this. And he said, Jamie, he said, God has got this. He said, we know how to love a child. What's one more? And it was such a beautiful moment that I needed. Like, imagine if he had been negative, imagine if he had, which some men are. And this was different. This was this moment of faith that he was projecting for me. And that morning we said, let's tell the kids. And that morning we put in an Easter egg. In an empty Easter egg, we wrote a little note that says, Mommy has a baby in her tummy. And we have a video of that too. And they opened it and I signed it for Katie and for Jackie. But they opened the egg and they were jumping up and down. They were so excited. Oh my word. They were so excited. And then I knew, I have to tell you, Beth, I knew it was a boy. I just knew. I knew this is my rainbow baby from my pain of losing Brantley. Like I had a miscarriage where I really felt like it had been a boy. So I just felt like this is my gift from God. I knew it. And so I got the early gender test at like 10 weeks and I opened the results and it was a boy. And I ran downstairs and surprised the kids and they were jumping up and down. They wanted a brother so bad. I think they were sick of sisters. They were sick of sisters at that rate. And so I, prepared for my son. It was a very rough pregnancy. Man, I was on complete bed rest. So hard. I had arthritis in all my joints. I had every pregnancy issue you can think of. And, I went into labor 10 separate times where I had to be hospitalized and they had to stop the labor. And then, it was very difficult. So by the time he came out, I was like so emotional. Like, here's my son. So that's Noah Douglas. Our Noah. And Noah is Hebrew for comfort. And man, was he a comfort to all of us. We just adore him. He's a miracle, really.
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah, thank you.
That.
Yes, that's my 5 miracles.
That is. As a mother of children with special needs, that requires a lot of energy, patience, Can you tell us a little bit about the support group that you started because of
Sure.
the children you have? Another amazing
Sure.
thing.
Yeah. So I'll say that, remember I had said when I first came home from China, I felt so alone, so isolated, so discouraged. None of my friends that I had at the time could understand a child with that severe of special needs that Katie had. And, and she's still, she's in her own world. She does connect with us in her own special way, but I was alone. I had no support system in place for what I needed. I had my parents, I had my mother-in-law who tried to support us, were very loving and comforting to us when we were upset. They're wonderful. My mother-in-law is wonderful. And she lives here in New Jersey. And Katie has a special bond with her. But at that time, I had nobody could talk to about, I'm so discouraged today, and people don't understand the level of isolation a special needs parent experiences. It's really profound. And so about a year and a half or so, 2 years after we had Katie, I said, I've led so many women's group. I was a women's director at our church. I had led so many retreats, so many small groups for women. I said, why did I start a support group? At first, I said, I want to go to a support group, and I started searching, and there was no special needs support group within an hour radius of my home. There was nothing. And I searched and searched. So I said, well, what have I learned? If you want to have it, sometimes you have to be it. So I reached out. I started a support group. I got a huge response early on, and I called it Moms of Treasures. Sorry, I get emotional because
no, that's okay. Moms of treasures.
Moms of treasures, but I'll tell you why I get emotional, Beth, because I named it that because I wanted special need children are so extraordinary, and people can sometimes have a very, very negative view on them. And in fact, at the time, there was a group of people who we knew, I won't go into details about who they were, but they were very negative about Katie. And I found out later, if I had known at the time, I would have lost it. But I found out later that they would call Katie to each other. They would refer to her as Jamie's mistake.
Ooh.
Yeah. And that I made a mistake to go to China and adopt this little girl. And when I found that out, Beth, I said, she's my treasure. And so for me, it was not a question about what I would name the group. Moms of Treasures. And each of those women, I'm going to just tell you a beautiful moment that gives you a picture of what our group was to me, and still is. We used to meet every single week in my home, and it was a busy group, and we did that for years. And then we met every other week. And now that I'm working full time, we meet once a quarter and go out to dinner. And we could sit there for hours and hours. Sometimes we sit until they close at a restaurant. But one of the connections that happened in my group meant so much to me. It was a woman who came, a new mom, and she didn't know that her daughter had Down syndrome. And then she gave birth to her, found out in the delivery room. And she was really going through the ups and downs of the grief of, she loved her dearly, but she didn't know how in the world she was going to deal with this and survive and thrive. And so she came to our group. Her daughter was still a newborn, and she cried every meeting for months and months and months. Every single meeting she cried. She would just sit there and sob. And we would encourage her. And then I started getting, I selected 2 mentor moms for the group. I specifically wanted some moms coming who were in their 50s, 60s, and had children who were grown with special needs, because I've seen how powerful it is for those women to have a voice in a support group. And they came, and there was this wonderful woman, Phyllis, who had an adult son with Down syndrome, the exact same special need. And she had such joy in her life. She was such a wonderful woman who loved God and loved her son. And she would come to the group and encourage everyone with everything she said was encouraging. And one week, she asked to hold the newborn girl with Down syndrome. She said, "Can I hold her?" And she held her. And for me, it was just, sometimes in life, you just have this snapshot that you want to keep in your brain forever. Mm-hmm. And it was this snapshot of Phyllis holding this precious little baby. And she was rubbing her back, and she said to the new mom, "She's going to be okay." And she said, "I promise you she's going to be okay, and you're going to be okay." And the mom was crying, and it was just this moment of like, people would say to me, "Beth, like, wow, what do you teach these women? You must teach them so much, being a mom of a special needs child." And I say, no, they teach me. I just facilitate the discussion. They teach me, and they uplift me. And getting to watch their connections, those moments of support that a woman gives another woman, a mom gives another mom, there's nothing like it. I could do that all day, every day. It's truly magical and miraculous.
That moment is,
there's no words.
Really great.
There's no words. And that's what a support group is for. So that was Moms of Treasures. And
where can somebody find information on that if they are listening and want to hear?
Sure. Yeah, sure. We're probably going to do a dinner out in late May. So this is perfect timing. So we'll, if they want to go on Facebook and just search for Moms of Treasures. I have a Facebook page, and that's where I put our events and whatnot. And so they can totally do that. And then they can also message me on there if they want to reach out to me and refer someone to it, or they know someone who's struggling. I talk to the mothers more often than we go out. Like, I talk to them on the phone when they're struggling. Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that I put a link to that also in the show notes.
Sure. Thank you.
Wants to. Yeah. So I also want to touch base with you on how you've been able to manage keeping the moms of your adopted children in the life of your home still. Like that takes a lot, I think.
Yeah.
To be able to do
it's not easy. I'll tell you right now, it takes a lot of patience, a lot of grace, humility. It's humility because there's moments that my children have, So Lacey, the issue with Lacey is we couldn't reach her birth mom. And on her 4th birthday, I had found her previously on Facebook. And I had made like a fake account on Facebook. That's my backup, what should we call that? Backup account. For every foster mom has one. So, to search for to keep an eye on what the bio parents are doing. But I had found her on there previously, but didn't feel like it was time to reach out to her yet. I was scared. And on her 4th birthday, on all Katie, Lacey, and Jackie's birthdays, I have this overwhelming feeling about their birth moms. I thank God for them. I pray for the birth moms. And I think, wow, they are thinking of their baby on this day. They are. I know they are. Yes. And you don't forget a baby you give birth to. You never forget a child you've carried. And it's ingrained in their heart. And on Lacey's 4th birthday, I woke up and I had this just overwhelming feeling like today's the day. I'm going to reach out to Diamond. Her first name is Diamond. And I thought she could reject me. She could reject Lacey. There's so many questions. Maybe she doesn't want us to reach out to her. She used a fake ID, but we did find out, we saw a redacted document, held it up to the light, could see through the Sharpie and see her name. That's how we found her. And so I told my husband, I said, Doug, it's time. I'm doing it. And he said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm doing it. So I got together 4 pictures. Lacey's so beautiful. It's the cutest pictures to give her. So I gave her 4 pictures and I wrote a letter and I sent it in Facebook Messenger. And I said, Diamond, I believe you gave up a child named Angel on this date at this hospital. And we fostered her. We adopted her. She's the love of our lives. Thank you so much for this gift. And we want to give you a gift back. Do you want to know her? And I sent it. And I was getting ready for Lacey's birthday party that day. And I just kept thinking, maybe I'll never hear back, Yeah. And nope. And right before the party, I get this message that just shook me. And she said, oh my God. She said, you don't understand. She said, this is the best day of my whole life. She goes, every single day for 4 solid years. I wonder where Angel is. I wonder who has her. I wonder if she's alive. I wonder if she's being loved. And you just answered all of those for me. And she goes, yes, I want to know her. Yeah, what a gift. She said, yes, I want to know her. I pray for her. I want to know my daughter. And I said, then you can. And we spoke so much during that time, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we decided to do a video call with Lacey. And she calls her Lacey Angel. When we talk about her together, we call her Lacey Angel, even though she's Lacey Joy Angel Becker. But yeah, and she, man, I have video of them, that's a private video, but I have video of them talking for the first time. She had a song she would sing. She sang to her when she was pregnant. And then she sang to her the first day of her life. She only has 1 picture of her from her first day of life. And I was able to give her so many more. And she sang that song to Lacey. And Lacey, that's a special song to Lacey about I'll always love you. It's this R&B song about, I'll love you forever. And it's about a mother who gets separated from her child. Oh. And it's beautiful. And, so they write messages back and forth. They haven't met. It's complicated, but I'm willing to have them meet, but it hasn't happened yet. But they have a special bond. And she has also met her sisters over video call. Oh, really? Yeah. She's met her sisters. So it's her dream to meet them in person. But it's so delicate when you are adopted parent.
That's hard. Yeah. And as the adoptive mom, I mean, that would be hard for me. Yeah. But I give you a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. And Jackie also has a strong relationship with her mother still. They text all the time. They video call. They see each other every couple months. She's somewhat local.
So they do see one another.
They do. She never...
Alone or with you?
No, alone. Oh, she picks her up. She'll take her swimming in the summer. Nice. Even they've gone to the beach. She has other siblings. Which is very complicated and complex, but she still gets to see those siblings. But for me, there are moments like with Lacey, like if Lacey's in trouble for something is when it comes out. She'll be in timeout and she'll start saying, I want Mama Diamond. I don't want you. And then she'll kind of spiral and say, why did Mama Diamond give me up? Why couldn't Mama Diamond raise me? And it's very complicated. It's very complex, which kind of goes into the last point about motherhood. But I'll let you.
No. Yeah. I mean, I find it you can't even be unique. You just have so many different components that are part of your life, and you just manage them so well.
Oh, I don't know. I have my moments, Beth, as all mothers do, where I say, I throw my hands up and I say, all right, I'm going to my room. I'm putting myself in a timeout.
Good for you. You have to.
Yeah, I have to. I tell parents all the time, there's no shame in saying, I need to walk away. I need to have a timeout, a mommy timeout, so I don't lose my temper. Yeah.
So, one of the things I've told my children, I have two
Yeah.
daughters, I always tell them there's no greater love on earth than the love of a mother for her children, which
It's
obviously you
true.
have demonstrated.
Yeah,
I say it's undescribable.
it is.
It's something that has to be felt. If you had to describe your love for your children, how would you put it into words?
I have put it into words. I actually brought down.
This whole,
Yeah. No. Well, also I put it into
Mhm.
words for each of my adopted children. I have a plaque for them.
Okay.
On Jackie's, it's a pillow. I'm holding Lacey's right now, so I was going to read it to you. And then I have an identical one for Katie. So I'll just back up and say one of the things I 100% agree with you, Beth. It is completely and utterly extraordinary the love a mother has for their child. And I do think it's unique. I don't think they're to diminish in any way the love a father has for their child, but there's something about a mother and all the examples you can think of mothers that die for their children, it's just this connection. And so one of the things that hits me is that, like, Kara and Noah know, I always tell all my kids, but my biological children know that they were a dream come true for me, that I always wanted to have children and I had them. But I wanted my adopted children to know that, because believe me, there's moments, Katie is not as aware, but Jackie and Lacey have huge existential moments where they believe that, I wasn't wanted by my birth mom, or I wasn't loved, or it's very, very deep. And there's actually a book about that called The Primal Wound. And I refer to that my girls have a primal wound, meaning it's this very deep, profound wound that I cannot fix. I cannot perfectly heal. That's something that'll be a lifelong journey for them. You can ask any adopted person, even, older adults, that do they have that primal wound? And it's the wound of why couldn't I be with my birth mom? And why did she give me up? Or why am I no longer with her? And so I made this plaque, and I'm going to read it. It says, Lacey Joy Angel Becker. Sorry, it always makes me cry. And it's the same phrase on all of their things we gave them. Mommy and Daddy prayed for you. We waited for you. We love you forever and always. You are our dream come true. And on hard days, they see it, they read it. I tell them that. I want them to know they're literally my dream come true. I wanted to be a mommy. I wanted to adopt, and here they are. And believe me, there are really hard days. I don't go into all the details, but the level of trauma, the level of compounding issues that are in the background are so hard. We have a therapeutic support for our whole family. All my children have some sort of therapist, and it's so deep, the love a mother has, but I want them to know it. I need them to know it. They should know it. Every child should know it. So that's where we're at.
I love that.
Yeah.
So finally, or one of my last questions is, what do you want your children to remember most about their upbringing and your role in their life?
I want them to have, because it comes from my mother, really. I'm sorry. It comes from my mother, and I know you had it from your mother. It's the sense of security. There is an emotional security that both of my mother, your mother gave you, that is, you are forever and always loved by me. There's nothing you can say. There's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can go where my love doesn't follow you. And honestly, it comes from my mother, and it also comes from God. I believe it's a very deep spiritual truth that I believe that about how God views me as a father, as a heavenly father. And having that parental love that's in place from God, knowing there's nothing I can say, there's nothing I can do, there's nowhere I can go where his love doesn't follow me. I want my children to know that. I do.
You know what? You saying that as you're saying that, I was thinking that as you were talking about that love of a mother.
Yes.
I thought the same thing about our Heavenly Father for those of us that are Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're both Christian.
Yeah.
And it's very profound. And I think it's one of the most, it creates your worldview. It's the fabric of your worldview. No matter your worldview, it's also the fabric of your self-talk, your own self-talk. When you make a mistake, what do you say to yourself? And if you have that secure love in place, then you know that everything is going to be okay. That this day may be hard, but it will get better. It's very, there's no way to really describe it.
No.
Yeah.
So, Jamie, thank you so much for sharing your
welcome.
story with such honesty, warmth, grace, and just being so sincere. Your journey throughout motherhood, both your biological children, adoptive, foster, it reminds us that love isn't limited by genetics or circumstances. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And your children's stories are powerful. But the way you and your husband have brought them together as one family, it truly is inspiring. You've shown us that motherhood can take many forms. And I'm so grateful for your time, your heart, and your example. And I want to wish you a happy Mother's Day. And thank you for being who you are.
Thank you so much, Beth. I have to end with one just thought. I want to tell you that what you're doing is so powerful. Giving a voice to people with stories. And I want to tell you, I really feel this on a deep level, that your mother's proud of you, Beth.
Thank you.
I know she's proud of you. I know she can see you and she's proud of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers
Happy
out
Mother's
there.
Day. Yeah. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you. Thank you, Beth. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on Extraordinary People in an Ordinary World. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Please share with a friend. If you know an extraordinary person, I would love to hear from you so that I can feature them on the show. Please email me at bethextraordinarypeople@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram at extraordinary_people_podcast. I look forward to hearing from you. And in the words of Saint Mother Teresa, not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. I look forward to our next extraordinary person, the first Friday of next month. See you then.